Hello, welcome to Module 4, Data Quality. Last week was mostly about cartography, and you remember that cartography is kind of the way that you communicate spatial data. And so there are certain elements of the cartographic language that people understand, so that you need to understand those also so that you can make a map that people will be able to understand. First quiz, who is this? Most people won't know who that is. Just give you a hint. It's the person who you might associate with that. And that's not Walt Disney. Nope, it's Rudyard Kipling. So Rudyard Kipling wrote that book a long time back. Rudyard Kipling actually wrote a lot of things, including a book called Just So Stories, Stories for Children. And one of those stories, The Elephant's Child, talks about how the elephant got its long snout. And inside The Elephant's Child, there's this verse. I keep 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I knew. Their names are what and why and when, and how and where and who. So this video is basically about metadata, and metadata in a nutshell is the 6 honest serving men. This has been in the news a lot. Here's an article from early 2014 about the NSA. They were collecting the metadata on all the phone calls. What did the article say metadata was? Well, it's information carriers collect about where and when and to whom. So that's 3 of those 6 that Kipling used. Here's a definition from the web. Metadata is data that provides information about other data. For GIS, metadata includes who collected the data, what the data were, where the data were collected, when the data were collected, why the data were collected, how the data were collected. So there's the 6 honest serving men, and also we need to know about the scale of the data and anything you did algorithmically or transformationally or processing that you did to the data before you made a final data set. Okay, so ideally the following elements should be present in GIS metadata. What data structure, what model are you using? Vector, raster. What type of projection are you using? What coordinate system are you using? What conversions did you use if you got data in one ellipsoid and you needed to convert it to another ellipsoid? What was the scale of the original data? When were the data created? How were they collected? What are the names of the field names that are associated with the data? And what kind of errors can we expect to see in the data? And what's the accuracy and precision of the collection process? A lot of stuff you want to include in your metadata. So in order to make sure that you include those things in kind of a standard way, the Federal Geographic Data Committee, FGDC, has come up with standards for metadata. And those standards evolve, and the standards will continue to evolve. But if you want to know what elements you need to include in your metadata, go to this place and you'll be able to see the latest standards. They also have a spatial data infrastructure, which is kind of a standard infrastructure for storing data. And the way it does it is it breaks things down into what's called foundation data, framework foundation data. And you can see that that's geodetic control. So these are those points on your datum that are precisely located, latitude and longitude, precise locations. Digital terrain, that's the elevation information or the depth information, and that's going to involve the whole geoid that we talked about during georeferencing. Here's some imagery so you can see what the surface looks like as it's laid on top of those things. Then there's a layer of framework themes, and framework themes involve basic themes that you might include in a basic reference map. So you might include roads, you might include streams, you might include boundaries. Those would be the framework themes. And then if you're going to make a thematic map or a choropleth map, you might make a map that is looking specifically at one specific theme, looking more deeply at one specific theme. So there are standard themes that are built, and there are additional themes that you can make on your own if you're interested in looking at a different thing. Those are called other thematic data, of course. Okay, so if you use data from someone else that's following these standards, you will be able to find the type of data that you're looking for in one of these different data sets. If you're going to produce something that will go to someone else, you should think about producing the data sets so that it falls inside this infrastructure so that other people can use it and have it fit with the data that they're already using. ArcGIS has an extensive metadata editor. If you're changing something, you need to know how to use the metadata editor to tell the metadata that you've changed something, you've transformed something, you've processed something. If you're creating new data, you need to use the metadata editor to include this so that when you give that data to someone else, they're going to know what's going on with the data. There are a bunch of tools in ArcGIS that you can use to process the metadata, to import, to convert, to export, to check to make sure it has everything. And so metadata is really an important thing, especially when you get to work in a larger organization. Maintenance of metadata is a big deal, so using the standards and using the tools and the applications in ArcGIS is going to become important, and you should probably get a chance to do some of this in one of the labs. Okay, next time I'm going to talk about levels of measurement.